A very good evening to you and welcome to The Bottom Line, a wrap of the day's business news. And we start with the man who has one of the toughest jobs there is out there. Jabu Mabuza has been appointed acting CEO of Eskom. He, of course, is already chair of the power utility, so now he becomes the executive chair, who is also responsible for the daily running of the power utility. That decision was made by Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan and announced following a board meeting today. This follows the resignation of Phakamani Hadebe, who leaves the employ of Eskom in just a few days. Radebe resigning in May, citing unimaginable demands of the job, saying that was impacting on his health. He will present the company's annual integrated financial results, expected to show another drop in profits at Eskom. That's tomorrow. Well, Gordhan says that Mabuza will be the executive chair and acting CEO for 3 months, during which time the board will find a new chief executive. Now let's look at the market reaction. Dollar bonds fell, perhaps on continued uncertainty, since there is no permanent candidate, it seems, for the post. This is an acting role. The rand, however, if we take a look, is holding up. Remember, it shot through 14 rand to the dollar last week, and it remains above 14 at those weaker levels today. But there doesn't seem to be any specific response to Mabuza's appointment. The rand was trading at around 14.20 a few minutes ago, which is stronger than 14.31 earlier. So remember, a downward trend is actually strengthening on the rand graph. We should remember, though, that one of the issues weighing on the rand is the concern of rating agencies at the moment that Eskom has been given another bailout, 59 billion announced last week, and it seems there will be no turnaround soon, but government is being forced to fund Eskom to keep the lights on. Well, let's discuss. I'm now joined by energy analyst Chris Yelland, also MD at EE Publishers. Thank you very much, Chris. Is this a problem that there's an acting CEO rather than a permanent appointment?
Well, it's certainly not ideal to combine the roles of an executive chairman and a CEO. The governance issues are significant, and the separation of these roles is there for a purpose. But I think it speaks to the fact that they're having difficulty finding somebody who's going to accept this challenge. And it really points to the significant pressures that are experienced at Eskom. I mean, Phakamani Hadebe said there were unimaginable pressures on him. Well, can you imagine now the double pressures on the chairman and the CEO as a combined role? So it doesn't... It's not a normal step. It's a kind of a crisis management step.
What about Jabu Mabuza himself? So he has a track record as the chairman for a while and in business for a very long time. Is there confidence in him?
Well, I think the financial community has responded somewhat negatively to this appointment. Now, I don't think that's necessarily because of him. I think it's a situation surrounding the governance of Eskom, and the combining of these roles, I think, is not the right approach.
Because you actually want the chair checking on the CEO.
Exactly, they have two different roles. They have two different roles. It's certainly in terms of the governance. I must say I was surprised to hear of the appointment, because I expected there to be an appointment from within the board, from people who have got experience with the board, with Eskom, with technology, with engineering. And there are, several identifiable candidates who could have, I think, filled this role, but perhaps they were unavailable for one reason or another.
Is he seen as ethical, given the sort of governance challenges that have taken place at Eskom?
I believe so, but there are, you can see in the social media comments about conflicts of interest, previously being involved in the coal supply, but we know that he has divested himself of those interests, or at least distanced himself from those interests. I don't know where they exactly stand, but I do think there is going to be a lot of noise on social media from the usual suspects who create a lot of noise around the current regime, the current administration, and it's part of the wider noise that we see around a number of other issues.
You've been following Eskom for a while, and last week we were talking about Eskom as a risk to the entire country's finances, especially with the rating agencies not being happy because money is sort of being given to Eskom, but we don't see a huge turnaround plan. Is he the man to articulate now what Eskom will do? What about the unbundling? I mean, what does he have to do to get that confidence back?
Well, I think the financial community are looking for more than a continuation of the status quo, of people who've been in this role for some time. There was a turnaround plan presented by the CEO to the board, and from the board to the minister, and the minister to the cabinet. But it's now the end of July, and I think the financial community is really wondering why things are not proceeding, or why they seem to be stuck. We had the election in between. That no doubt caused a period of indecision or lack of decision making. But they are expecting to see some movement. And I think the problem really is there seems to be a lack of consensus within government, within the ANC, the ruling party, as to what is the future end state of the electricity supply industry. And it seems that not everybody is on the same page. People are pulling in different directions, and this is a recipe for indecision.
So the unbundling, I mean, unions immediately came out and said no if there's going to be job losses. Many people suspicious of privatization of parts of Eskom. Is that the sticking point right now?
Well, certainly the whole vision for the future end state of the industry and how to get there, I think needs to be articulated much more clearly to give the financial community a measure of confidence that the necessary steps are being taken. As you said, tomorrow there's going to be the announcement of the financial results for the year ending 31st of March. The announcement is already somewhat late, and it has to be announced before the end of the month because of Eskom's listed debt and the JSE requirements. So any further delay beyond the end of this month would have been very negative indeed.
Well, let's end there. So what's expected? Explain how bad the finances are right now.
They are very bad. So the talk is that there's going to be a bottom line loss of somewhere between 20 and 25 billion rand, which would make it the biggest corporate loss.
Which is about half of the bailout that Eskom has just received.
That's right. Of course, remember the bailout is not going to really, bailout now is not going to affect the financial performance for the last financial year. It may affect the interest bill if that money is used to reduce debt. But it doesn't change things for the financials ending 31st of March 2019.
All right, pretty bleak picture. Thank you very much, Chris Yelland, energy analyst, and we'll of course bring you those numbers as soon as they come out tomorrow. Now, in other business news, the stakeholders involved